Okay, we're back. This is Techmath2. We're looking at the midterm review. This is part 3. Now, again, chapter 9 and 10. This is the one that we just tested on, so I hope this is all still really fresh in the old noodle. And again, I only did the ones on the answer key that actually made it to the midterm. So I will run through these other problems for you on this video, just in case if you're just curious on how to do them because you did them yourself. But only the ones that are kind of marked in purple on the blank one that I posted are going to make it onto the test. Okay, and so let's take a look at how to do these. Okay. So number one, the cosine times what is equal to 1? Well, that would be times the secant. The blank times cotangent is equal to 1. Well, that would be tangent. So those are like their inverses. The secant is the inverse of the cosine. The tangent is the inverse of the cotangent. This is a different one. This is just a memorized Pythagorean one. Tangent squared plus what equals secant squared. That would be 1. Tangent equals what over cosine? That's sine over cosine. And sine squared plus blank equals 1. That's cosine squared. And so those are all just kind of memorized things. And there isn't any real work to it. Okay, number 2, there is a little bit of work to it. We've got A, B, and C. And now across from the capital letter A, the angle, is little a. Across from big B is little b. Across from big C is little c. Okay? And now they want us to find the opposite ones. Number 2, they want us to find the inverse secant, cosecant, and cotangent of A. So this is the only angle they went off of, just this angle. That's nice. But let's remember how this works. SOHCAHTOA. That is the 3 main trigonometric functions. These are the inverse functions. All right? So the opposite of secant is cosine. So let's look at what is the cosine of A. The cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's what the AH means in SOHCAHTOA. Adjacent over hypotenuse. The one opposite the 90 is always the hypotenuse. So that's the hypotenuse. So that is B over C. So if I want secant, that is C over B. All right? Cosecant is sine. So let's find the inverse of sine. So sine here, angle A, opposite over hypotenuse. Again, opposite the 90 is the hypotenuse. Opposite this angle is A. Think of it like a flashlight. Like if I had a flashlight here and it would shine on that wall, that's the opposite. Okay? So A over C. Or that's the C over A for the cosecant. And then tangent of A is equal to opposite over adjacent. So A over B. So cotangent is flip-flopped around B over A. All right? Now, I've been around math for a real long time, and I still do this for myself. Seriously. If you hand me one of these, I have to do it this way and then just do the opposites. Because if I just try to do it all in one step in my brain, I'll mix up one of those 3. I'll get 2 of them right, but often I'll make a mistake, and I don't like making mistakes. All right? Number 3 didn't make it to the test, unfortunately. That's a super easy one, too. That's just plug and chug. I'll do that one really super fast for you, in case you did it already. So that's alpha is equal to the arc sine of x over z, but then they give us alpha is 14 degrees, and then the arc sine of x is 138 over z. And so what does this mean? Well, this means I have to rewrite it. If the arc sine is this, is equal to 14 degrees, then the sine of 14 degrees is equal to this. That answer, 138 over z. And then you cross multiply and solve, so you get z is equal to 138 over the sine of 14 degrees. And that is chapter 9, number 3, 570. didn't make the test, so don't worry about it. All right, number 4 did make the test, so worry about it. Find the acute angle that satisfies. Okay, so they went a little easier on us on this one for chapter 9 than what we had on this test. If you remember on this test, we had a bunch of answers where you had to give me 2 answers because you had to look at the sine curve from 0 to 360. What they did here and what they're going to do on the final is the acute angle is just 0 to 90. Acute means basically less than 90 degrees, so from 0 to 90. Not inclusive, so not including 0 or 90. So 1 plus sine theta equals 3 sine theta. This is number 4 on the chapter 9 midterm review. It's the review that's marked the final review. We're on page 3 of 8, about halfway down, okay? So we're solving this. Remember how these work. This is tricky. You have to do minus 1 sine theta from both sides, and that's like a variable. Like if you had 3x minus 1x, that would be 2x. Well, this is 2 sine theta. Equals 1, and then divide by 2. So 1/2 equals sine theta. And now we do the arc sine of 1/2. And so what is the arc sine of 1/2? That kicks out 30 degrees. Oops. Let me write. Arc sine of 1/2 is what theta is equal to, right? Rewrite it as an arc sine problem. And then theta is equal to 30 degrees. And so then we don't have to worry about it because it says acute angle. We only need 1 answer, not 2. So we don't need 150. All right, we would need 150 if it said between 0 and 360. Then it would have been like on the test that we had. But since they said acute, we're limited to just this 1 answer. And so we don't have to draw a sine. We don't have to do all that stuff. So it's a lot easier. Okay, and that was mostly for a time thing. I know you guys can get your head around that pretty easily. All right, so let's keep going. Chapter 10 is number 1, number 2a. I'll do 2a and b, and number 3. And I'll do number 4, but number 4 didn't make it to the midterm. It's just, it takes too long. We did do one like that on the test we just took. Okay, so number 1, the resultant vector A and vector B is 40 plus 60j. Vector A is 30 minus 10j. Find vector B. So basically what we're doing is we're taking the resultant, 40 plus 60j, and we're subtracting the given vector. And that will be the other vector. So minus 30 minus 10j. The subtraction is a little harder. You have to do the distributive property. So it's minus 30 plus 10j. And now after that, it's just combine like terms. So I know this is kind of a heavy duty concept with the imaginary number system and everything. But at the end of the day, you're just combining like terms like you did in basic algebra. So 40 plus negative 30 is 10. And positive 60 and positive 10 is positive 70j. And that's it. Okay? So don't make that one harder than it is. All right, the next one, 2a, that's not bad. 60 with 120 and 10, negative 150. Now remember, this is polar form. That's what's happening here. So when you multiply in polar form, you just multiply the 60 times the 10. That's 600. And then you add up the angle, so that's negative 30. And I think that's it. So 600, negative 30, you could leave it like that. Does it say it has to give it between 0 and 360? I don't think it does. So you just leave it like that. That's fine. You'll be done. If you want to make it so it's not going negative, remember how negative angles work from chapter 1. negative 30 degrees is here. That means going around positive way would be 330. So another acceptable answer would be 330 degrees. But you don't have to do that. You can just leave it that because it did not specify they wanted it between 0 and 360. Okay? B isn't on there, but I'll do it. It's a quick problem anyway. But I just wanted you guys to be able to focus on the midterm problems that you really have to worry about. That's why I just didn't work out the whole midterm review for you like I've done in the past with all the other reviews. But on the video here, I'm still working them for you. But I just didn't want you throwing a lot of effort at problems you're not going to see. So 50, 260. So remember how this works. It is, you literally just divide those. So you take 48 divided by 48.6 divided by 1, is it 150 or 15? Okay, oh, maybe they have a typo there, because that can't be what they said it is here. Let's see. Let's do it in our calculator. So 48.6 divided by 150, that should be 0.324. And then the angle is negative 110 minus 260. So that's negative 370. And so that's, I don't think the answer that they have. Yeah, they got 32.4. So that's an error anyway on the key. It should be 0.324, or that should be 486. One of those two has to be true. So either they didn't want the decimal on that, but it clearly looks like a decimal to me, 48.6. So the typo on the key there, if you got 0.32 and negative 370, go with it. Now they have negative 10, that's also fine. Because remember, what would negative 370 look like? That would be all the way around like this. So 0.324 and negative 10 would be fine. Or 0.324 and 350 degrees if you went the correct way around. So any of those three would be just dandy for that problem. But again, there isn't a Division 1 on the midterm, so you don't really have to worry about that. All right. So let's jump to number 3. And there's 2 ways you could do that. And again, you just did these, so you likely remember you could do it using algebra and multiplying both top and bottom by the conjugate. That would be doing it by hand. Or you can click it into your calculator and make it do the whole thing. Okay? Either way is fine. Or you could do both ways and check it. So to do it in your calculator, you would do 6 minus 9i in parentheses, and then divided by parentheses 8 plus 7i end parentheses, and then hit enter. If you're doing it algebraically, you would multiply it by 8 minus 7j, top and bottom. That is the conjugate. That fixes the bottom, so there's no imaginaries down there. So we get 64. 6 times negative 7 is, what is that, negative 56j, positive 56j. And then minus 49j squared. Okay? So those 56's cancel. On the top, we get 48. We get negative 42j. We get negative 72j. And we get positive 63j squared. Okay? And so that means, what do we end up with? On the top, That is 48, and then plus 63j squared. J squared is negative 1, so minus 63. And then you put those two together, and that's negative 114j. On the bottom, 64 plus 49. Because minus 49j squared, remember j squared is negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 49 is positive 49. And so then we end up with negative 15 minus 114j over 113. So you can leave your answer like that. That's fine. That's perfect. Or if you do it in your calculator and round to tenths, or hundredths rather, that would be negative 0.13 minus 1.01j. Which is also what you get when you divide 15 by 113 and 114 by 113. You'll get those two answers, okay? And here, I'll show you. You can have your cake and eat it too. Make the calculator do the whole problem and convert it into a fraction if you'd like to. I will show you the keystrokes for that right now. Ready? So here it goes. Parenthesis 6 minus 9, and now the imaginary is right there. You see it? So it's the yellow, and then the imaginary, and there's my imaginary. And then n parenthesis divided by parenthesis 8 plus 7 I n parenthesis. So we got that, and we hit enter, and there is our negative 0.13, and if you right click it over to negative 1.008, so negative 1.01, and then see there is an I on the end right there, a little I, okay? But now, if you want to put it into fraction form, you just hit math, and then see the very first thing is to fractions. So hit enter, and then it says, really, you want to make that answer to a fraction? And you say yes. And there is my negative 15 over 113, minus 114 1/13 I. Now, really, they should have the I on the 114. Or they should have parentheses around that second number. So don't write exactly that, because that means I is on the bottom, and that would actually change the sign. Remember, we can't have imaginary on the bottom. So bad form on the calculator there. They should have put it on the 114i. Okay? And then that's it for what's on the test. We can look at the last problem here. What is it? Again, we had one just like this on the test. Find Z1 in polar and Z sub t in polar, and round r and theta to whole numbers. So we had this one on the test we just took, but it didn't make it onto the midterm. So you really don't have to worry about this one, but just in case if you did it and you're worried about your answer, so 400, 0 degrees times 200, 60 degrees. And then on the bottom, we have to add them. 400, 0 degrees, plus 260 degrees. And to add them, that's the pain in the butt. Because 400, 0 degrees, that's easy to convert. That is 400, 0, which is 400 plus 0j. So that's super easy. But 260, that's a pain. So 200 is here. 60 is there, 60 degrees. And so now we have to do just what we did on chapter 2, right? We just did that on the first video, part 1. Same thing. This is what we're essentially doing on the bottom here. We're adding up vectors. It's just it's in the imaginary. So we've got these j's. This is the real and the imaginary, all right? And so, but we do the same thing. We go, from polar to rectangular, x, and polar rectangular y. I tell you what, I'm going to do 200 sine 60, and that's 173.205, and I'm going to do 200 cosine. Oh wait, see, I just messed it up. I shouldn't have did that. The 173 is the second number. Cosine is x, sine is y. I always get that screwed up. 60. 100. Okay, so it is 100 plus 173.205 j. And now we add those up. So on the bottom we have 500 plus 173.205 j. But we don't want it in rectangular. We want that back to polar. So we want to put this back into polar. So we go rectangular to polar r, 500, comma 173.205, and rectangular to polar theta, 500, comma 173. And so what is r? Is 500, comma 173.205 is I had the sign on there, so 500, comma 173.205. That is 529.15, and then 19.10, we'll just call it 19 degrees. And so now we go back to the original here. 400 times 200, we do that. So that's 8, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So 80,000. And then I add up 60 and 0 and get 60 degrees. And on the bottom, it was all this screwing around. 529.15 and 19 degrees. So I divide. So 80,000 divided by 529.15 is 151.1. So just round to the whole number, 151. And 60 minus 19 is 41 degrees. So 151 angle, sine, 41 degrees. But you don't really have to worry about that one because it did not make the cut. It's too much screwing around. It's a little too involved for the midterm. We got enough to worry about. So midterm just counts like every other test. So it's not weighted more. It's just a regular test. All right? Excellent.